If the White House knew President Obama was detailing an embellished story when presenting Meyer with the award. And the alleged U.S. Army whistleblower Private Bradley Manning is scheduled to make his first court appearance Friday, more than a year and a half after his arrest for allegedly passing on diplomatic cables to WikiLeaks. Members of the Bradley Manning Support Network have announced plans for a march outside the gates of Fort Meade, Maryland, where Manning will face a military hearing. Kevin Zeese is an attorney with the Bradley Manning Support Network.
The people who should be prosecuted, not Bradley Manning. He's accused of letting the truth out. He's not accused of doing any criminal activity. He's accused of letting the truth out, and he should be given an award for that, not prosecuted. He's facing the death penalty potentially. He's facing the death penalty for exposing war crimes.
Over 50 demonstrations around the world are planned for Saturday as part of a global day of solidarity to mark Manning's 24th birthday. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman.
And I'm Juan Gonzalez. Welcome to all of our listeners and viewers around the country and around the world. International pressure on the Syrian regime is increasing as the death toll there continues to rise. According to opposition forces, Syrian army defectors killed at least 27 government forces on Thursday. On Wednesday, 8 soldiers were gunned down by army defectors in a retaliatory ambush after government troops destroyed a civilian car. On Tuesday, 32 people were killed. Earlier this week, the United Nations estimated the death toll in Syria since March has surpassed 5,000. UN Human Rights Chief Navi Pillay said the violent crackdown by the government of President Bashar al-Assad could constitute crimes against humanity. Pillay also said that more than 14,000 people were reportedly in detention. During his end-of-the-year news conference yesterday, UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon called for action against Syria.
In Syria, more than 5,000 people are dead. This cannot go on. In the name of humanity, it is time for the international community to act.
On Wednesday, a coordinator with the U.S. Special Envoy for Middle East Peace, Frederick Hoff, told a House subcommittee that President Assad's repression may allow him to hang on to power, but only for a short time. Hoff was questioned by Senator Gary Ackerman.
Is there any chance that the Assad regime survives?
Congressman, our view is that this regime is the equivalent of dead man walking. But the real question is how many steps remain. I think it is very, very, very difficult to predict or project how much time this regime has. The more time it has, the worse for Syria, the worse for the region. That's very clear. But no, I do not see this regime surviving.
That was coordinator with the U.S. Special Envoy for Middle East Peace, Frederick Hoff, testifying on Capitol Hill Wednesday, being questioned by New York Congressmember Gary Ackerman. To find out more about what's happening in Syria, we're joined from Damascus by human rights lawyer Razan Zaitouneh. She is underground, recently one of the co-winners of the European Parliament's 2011 Sakharov Prize for Freedom of Thought. Other winners included the Egyptian youth activist Asma Mahfouz and Mohamed Bouazizi of Tunisia, who was awarded posthumously. She has been reporting on the recent protests for various networks. Welcome to Democracy Now! Can you talk about this latest figure, Razan Zaitouneh, the estimates of more than 5,000 people killed in your country, in Syria?
Yes, actually, according to our numbers in local coordination committees, by today, the numbers is more than 5,216 who got killed since the start of the revolution nine months ago. And we should say that this is only the numbers which the activists could document, because in many times we don't get the names at time because the siege and the cut of the communications. So we are sure that the numbers are much higher.
And some Western observers have been claiming that your country is descending into civil war, but the activists object to that characterization, don't they?
Sure. Some Western say that because there is a free Syrian army now, which protects civilians, and now it's armed actions against the army that would lead to a civil war. We should say that we want our revolution to stay peaceful at the end. But how can you convince people after more than 5 people got killed in 9 months not to defend themselves, and how you can ask the soldiers not to shoot their own people without defend themselves, because they don't have a choice. They have only to defend themselves against certain death or to shoot their own people.
Razan, can you talk about the defecting soldiers, those who have switched sides and are now opening fire on Syrian troops under Bashar al-Assad?
Actually, the number of defected soldiers is increasing daily, and daily we hear about more and more armed actions against the regime army. It becomes more hard for soldiers to stay inside an army which is asked to kill its own people. At the same time, the soldiers have no protection, have no place to go. So they have no choice but to fight back, to defend themselves, and also to defend civilians who were ordered to kill.
And what about the actions of the Arab League in trying to isolate the Syrian leadership, and the offers of the Syrian leadership now to allow civilians to come into the country to observe in exchange for removal of some of those sanctions?
I'm not sure about any serious action from the Arab League or any other procedures from the international community. The regime is given time after time to kill more people and more civilians. Every time there is a new reason, new justification for the regime to kill more people. It's as if the whole world is waiting the situation in Syria to reach a certain point. It's as if that 40% of killed people daily is not to take a serious action against the regime.
Razan Zaitouneh, what about the students? How are they organizing?
Since the school has started for this year, we witness daily protests. It's not organized, actually. The students finish their schools and go daily after the school in the protest. They got arrested, beaten, punished in every harsh way. And recently, what is remarkable that in Aleppo universities, more and more student protest is taking place daily, which is very important because until this moment, Aleppo wasn't that involved in the movement in general.
How is Bashar al-Assad maintaining his power right now? And what about the lack of Western media in Syria being able to really show the pictures of what's going on?
Only by killing. There is I think no another regime all this violence against its own people only to remain its power. And for long months, the people respond with nothing but with peaceful protest, with general strike, and another peaceful struggle. The protesters themselves, they made a journalist of themselves. They are taking photos, they are reporting the news, they are sending out the news. So that was kind of to make a compensation for the lack of the existence of any media inside the country.
I wanted to ask you about the character of the protests in many of the other countries that have been involved in the Arab Spring uprising. It's been the capital city where the largest protests have repeatedly erupted. But in Syria, it appears that while there have been protests in Damascus, that the most fierce and extensive protests are occurring in smaller towns around the country. Is that true? And if so, why?
It's only in Damascus and Aleppo where the protest is not in the center of the cities, but in all other cities, it's everywhere, in the cities, in its countrysides, everywhere. And that's for sure. It's for main reason is that security exists, the excessive security exists in those two cities. It's because it's it has minorities which are not that involved yet in the revolution. It's because the economic interest, there's different reasons for why not the main cities are not that involved in the revolution yet. But in all other cities, it's very strong everywhere.
What do you think needs to happen now, Razan Zaitouneh? What do you feel would be the most effective way to deal with the regime in Syria?
We know that longer time of violence by the regime against the civilians mean that more complications, more risk of that the revolution get militarized sooner. So it's not realistic that to leave the situation like this, more killing daily, and to leave the people face their fate alone. There should be some serious action by the Arab League and international society to help to make an important turning point in the Syrian revolution.
Razan Zaitouneh, particularly to an audience listening and watching this in the United States, what role do you think the United States should play at this point?
The United States and the whole international community shouldn't only watch what is going on as they did for long months. The whole world is asking the Syrian revolution to stay peaceful, and they are afraid of any more risk on the region, not only on the Syria in the future, but they do nothing to avoid such risk in the future. Until this moment, for example, there is no resolution from the Security Council. Until this moment, they are disabled to refer the Syrian file to the International Criminal Court. There is many steps should be taken soon by the international society to help Syrian people in their struggle against this brutal regime.
Razan Zaitouneh, I want to thank you for being with us. How are you keeping yourself safe?
As many of other activists in Syria, I'm living in hiding, trying to continue my activities and without getting arrested soon. We know that at the end, any of us is at the risk of getting killed or arrested, but we want to make this balance between continue our activities and get out of prison as long as we can.
Razan Zaitouneh is in hiding. She is a human rights lawyer speaking to us from Damascus, Syria. She recently was one of the co-winners of the European Parliament's 2011 Sakharov Prize for Freedom of Thought. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace